So when I was researching, I found that only 50% of students were at grade level for reading, and only 40% of students passed the math SBA test for the most recent SBA test. So my question is, are you worried about these results? And if you are worried about these results, what steps will you take to address this and to try to improve these numbers? Thank you.
Great question. The reason I'm running for Superintendent of Public Instruction is over the past 8 years, I've watched our student performance slip away. Just not too long ago, 10 years ago, Washington Public Schools were ranked number 8 in the nation. Now we're ranked in the lower half, around 27. My opinion, as someone married to a school teacher for many years, and my son's a school teacher, that's the wrong direction. Most troubling is in that number is that students of color, Black students, Latino, Native Americans, and also students with disabilities are being let further behind. What we need to do is lift up the struggling students. I would like to see more funding go into, as I said, special ed, but that's a blanket which will allow us to bring in more counselors, more paraeducators, and more mentors and tutors. The kids that are struggling often don't have the resources at home like other schools do to pay for tutors or pay for mentors outside the classroom. I would like to see the state fund more of our schools in a better way so that we can bring in mentors and teachers at no cost to the parent to ensure that we're giving every struggling student, especially in those demographics I just mentioned, make sure they're getting all the resources they need to be successful. Whenever kids are not successful, they tend to drop out, which can lead to much worse things when they get out of high school. So I want to make sure we're giving all the resources we can to our struggling students to make sure they have those tutors, mentors, and additional resources they need to be successful. And one of the things as well is a lot of school districts in high poverty and marginalized school districts don't have the money to update their curriculum. So they might be teaching curriculum that's 20 or 30 years old. I'd like to make sure that we empower those school districts financially to be able to upgrade their curriculum to something more modern and current so that we're teaching them the most up-to-date stuff that we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's definitely some clarification needed in those numbers. We've had our national testing group that we work with come forward and say people are really misusing the data. So you got to add about 20 percentage points to each of those for grade level. So it's about 70+% of kids who are at grade level for reading and about 60% for math. The 50% and 40% cited there is how many students by the end of 10th grade are ready for college level work. So that's really exciting that almost half our kids are ready for college level work by the end of the 10th grade. That said, I am worried about it. We definitely took a hit during the pandemic. We've made a lot of strides in the last 3 years, but there's a lot more work to do. And it really relates to this question of funding. We have to invest appropriately. We've lost ground in terms of funding per student to inflation. And in districts all over the state, they find themselves having to cut some of the extra things. So not basic ed that they're cutting, but a lot of those extra tutoring programs or summer engagement programs or after school programs, those aren't funded by the legislature. And so districts are having to pare those back when they lose resources. So it is about funding. It's about really diving into those assessment scores to figure out where we can make the most progress. And a lot of times that's low-income youth because they don't have the summer enrichment, the after-school programs. They don't have the same access to things that supplement learning. So that's where our focus will be, funding and driving the dollars where they're needed most. But I'm pleased with the math recovery so far. It's the reading that's still flattened out a little bit. That's a little bit frustrating. But definitely higher grade level performance than those stats present. And that's just a misunderstanding that's been around for decades. So I really appreciate the question.
Thank you.